Good morning and happy Wednesday, folks. William Tramp, also known as This FNGM here, ready to talk to you about Encounter Party. We had another great episode last night. By the way, did anybody else realize that we are now past the halfway point? There's 22 episodes in the first season, and we are now on episode 12, which means we're past the halfway point. Okay, anyway. Before we get started on this recap/review, I do want to point out that there are going to be some spoilers in this video. In fact, the entire thing is one giant spoiler for the episode that aired last night. So if you are not interested in spoilers, then I would go ahead and suggest that you watch that video. It is part 2 of my Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse review. I do reviews for things. Anyway, if you're not interested in either one of those, see you later. But if you're interested in sticking around, then let's go ahead and get started. Hit it, Tommy!
There is no Tommy. There is only me, the duck.
Episode 12, Full Moon Investigation, begins with the group at the Longstrider Manor. I don't know what we're calling it. Longstrider Manor? Longstrider Villa? Vin's house is where they all begin. After a quick reunion with Olivina and a touching moment between her and some of the other characters, the group settles down for a long rest with the intention on starting the day off strong the next morning. But during their time at the Longstrider Manor, they do take a look at the sword that was brought back by the group that Flick had taken control of due to the curse on it. And we learn about the sword. The sword is called the Sword of Sacrifice. Cool name, right? Now, the Sword of Sacrifice has a really interesting ability. Whoever is attuned to it cannot benefit from magical healing, which explains what happened to Flick in the corpse dungeon. But whenever it is used on someone, they can use the sword's magic to draw the intended foes lifeblood from them to infuse themselves. And not just in little doses. If I heard it correctly, it's all of their remaining hit points. The group figures out pretty quickly that this is probably how Vin's father died, was by using the sword in kind of a opposite way. You see, at least in old D&D, when you would try to heal, you would be using positive energy, and the undead were harmed by positive energy rather than being infused like we are, because they are the opposite. They are healed by negative energy and harmed by positive. So the idea is that Vin's father may have stabbed himself with the sword, or just held on to the sword and then transferred the power, his own positive force, into the undead, which killed the beholder. That's the idea, at least. I think it's a pretty cool idea. Well, the next morning, the group starts to split up. So Vin had decided, by the way, to send word out to the 3 remaining members of the Longstrider. The Erickson Manor. Why did I keep calling it the Longstrider Manor? My apologies. He's a part of the group, the Longstrider. Someone's going to tell me I said it wrong, and you know what? You got me. All right, so then Erickson at the Erickson Manor had sent word off to the 3 remaining Longstriders to come and assist with getting his father's body where it needs to be, so that way they could inter him or whatever it is they do with the body. But Asher, Olivina, and Flick decide to continue to investigate goodness gracious, Asher's sister's disappearance. So they head off to do so. They go out of town to follow the lead on the showgoers who have set up camp outside of town. Now, as they do so, they go and see their little encampment, and they meet a number of fun theater people, and including a stage director and a lighting director, stage manager. I'm not very good with theater terms. In the conversation, with them about, in which they're trying to find out information is, hey, where's my sister? First of all, her sister's not there. They also learned that the production had been plagued by a series of events, a very unfortunate series of events that they were attributing to bad luck. I believe that's also included some costume thefts. Now, fun fact, Lovers in Linen is a story that centered around the character of the Velveteen Mask. I know what I said about the Velveteen Mask before. I know. But the play centers around the Velveteen Mask, and the costume of the Velveteen Mask had been taken. Ooh. Obviously, somebody has taken the costume and decided to become the Velveteen Mask. IRL. That's my current theory. Anyway, well, Asher's sister isn't here not because she decided to go stay somewhere else, but rather she was fired from the troupe for tampering with the stage. That's what the stage manager tells her. The lighting director also just mentions that she had fallen in with a bad crowd. We're pretty sure at this point that the bad crowd is probably the future and that she had gotten involved in some cult activities. We've all been there. Through this conversation, they do make the decision that maybe they should go and talk to the writer of Lovers in London and the creator of The Velveteen Mask, Brian. No, I'm just kidding. There's an in-world author that they're going to go and talk with. But before we get into that, we should probably check in with the others. Then Dridian and Tolo head to the Longstrider base into the basement where they have the ritualistic torch hangings to go and inter Vin's father. Now, Vin's father is placed on a pyre, and what they do is they take these torches, these ever-burning torches that only wink out when they're dead, and use them to light the body to send them off. Now, what I think, obviously, Vin, whose own torch is out for some mysterious reason, we still haven't figured out the reason on that, he can't do it on his own, so he had to call the other three Longstriders. They go ahead and they set the body ablaze, and then gives some touching words in a native tongue to his father, kind of sending his father on to the next the next leg of his journey. Then something weird happens. The three Longstriders that came along decide to go and put themselves into cells, and then moves over and locks them all into the cell. This is kind of an odd situation here, and Vin simply explains that it's a full moon. Well, Dridian is kind of the gears are turning, and Dridian points out, hey, wait, are they blessed by Malar? What a way to say werewolf, right? Blessed by Malar? That's some Forgotten Realms deep dive stuff right there. Malar is the Lord of Lycanthropes, the Baron of Beasts. I'm not going to keep going with this, but Malar is a god of lycanthropes. Anyway, whatever. And Vin says he's not really quite sure what all that's about, and who Malar is and such. But yes, they are moon touched, and they may turn into beasts. So the standing agreement is they get locked inside of these rooms. Now we know that Vin isn't a part of that. We don't really get a full explanation as to why they are lycanthropes, why they haven't been healed, and why they all just agree to just lock these people up in the rooms. But it's cool, and that's kind of the point. One of the things about Dungeons and Dragons, when you get into like mid-level cleric spells, especially spells like Remove Curse and Lesser Restoration, is those spells can kind of take away some of the magic of the game, I feel. And rather than saying, oh yeah, they just got healed by a Remove Curse, instead it's, no, we've had to deal with this in an unconventional way. And it's like, yes, I love that. I love it so much. Also, real quick, it's odd that lycanthropes are called lycanthropes when lycan is a Latin root for dog. Yet we have werebears and weretigers and whatever. Never mind. Olivina, Asher, and Flick head to the bookstore where the author of Lovers in Linen, a Mr. Bland, who very much lives up to his name, is doing a book signing. So when they get to Mr. Bland, they start discussing with him what happened surrounding the play, which there's some very vehement denial, not from Mr. Bland, but rather from his agent, that they have anything to do with anything that was happening with that play, and that the play was being patronized, or the patron of the play was Patriarch Mallory Temperance, and that is the person they should talk to if they want to get into the building and see anything, because they wanted to go into the play building to get some clues. That is who the person they need to talk with. It was kind of a very odd situation. But in the sense that this agent is speaking for Mr. Bland, which is some classic stuff, right? The agent is speaking for the mild-mannered Mr. Bland. I said mild-mannered Mr. Bland, mild-mannered Mr. Bland, because I have a theory, and the phrase mild-mannered may hint towards that. The three of them kind of fighting a brick wall here in the bookstore, they head off to the home of Patriarch Mallory Temperance, where they are met at the door by Agent 2.0. I call him Agent 2.0 because it's yet another person who works on behalf of the person they actually want to speak with, who is very much a brick wall. We meet a elf secretary, a very tall, imposing elf, who tells them they are under no circumstances to speak with Patriarch Mallory Temperance without actual business. Ultimately, what they are trying to convince Patriarch Mallory Temperance is to allow, they're trying to convince the Patriarch to allow the play to continue on. I believe they think that this will give them access to the theater, or maybe they're just really into the arts. A bunch of theater people wanting to get a theatrical performance back on track. How did Brian ever convince them to get to buy into that? The Elven Secretary leaves them at the door for a moment and then comes back, granting them the ability to put on the play as long as the situation is safe, because this play had been, remember, taken off the air, taken off of, the show had been canceled because of the unsafe conditions surrounding it. But the elf has now stated, yes, the Patriarch will allow to go on as long as things are proven safe, and mainly because the Patriarch has a niece who's really into theater. That's a callback. We move back to Tolo, Dridian, and Vin, who are in an alley where Dridian is drawing with chalk a gateway to enter the Midnight Market. And sure enough, they get access through a magical portal underneath the light of the full moon to the Midnight Market, which is this super awesome sort of, magical bazaar. I like to think of Hellboy and the Golden Army, where they go through and find the hidden bazaar within the city that, there's the only way to get there is by having the right password or whatever. I can't remember how they got in there. But the point is, it's in that same vein, the mystic bazaar that, that exists for those in the know. The thing about this market, though, is that there are no magical items in there. Tolo is checking, and there's no magic whatsoever in this market. So they start to talk with a number of people, and they end up, I think, speaking with a blacksmith. They talk to a lot of blacksmiths in this. Who knew that the merchant that heavily armed warriors would trust would be the blacksmiths, right? Anyway, so they start talking with some of the merchants there, and kind of determine that the future did in fact come to this market a lot, and they were buying up pretty much every magic item they could. And as they would come in over time, members of the future would ask for more rare magic items, to the point to where they were asking for some really dangerous stuff, and they were getting real demanding about it. So the merchants agreed that this can't happen anymore. They don't want these weird people who want super aggressive weapons to come in here, and so they decided to sell no more magic items until the problem was dealt with. So this explains why the magic item trade has dried up in Baldur's Gate, or a large reason is, one, the future is purchasing everything, and two, merchants are agreeing to no longer sell here because of the future's behavior. So, one group ruining it for everything, am I right? Now, one thing I think is very interesting and close to my heart is that during this conversation, Dridian asks about the sword that he's looking for, and specifically calls it a Moonblade! Again, some Forgotten Realms deep dive lore. Now we move back to Fleck, Asher, and Olivina, who have decided to break into the loot chest. Hey, if you got a rogue in the party, what else are you gonna do, am I right? So they break into the loot chest and start looking for information, any clues that may lead to kind of what's going on here and where Asher's sister is. And they do find a series of notes written by Asher's sister, and through the magic of props, they are able to kind of put a couple of letters together and realize that there's something. There's a third letter, I think, maybe? I don't know. The magic of props delivers a clue, which is that Asher's sister was tampering with the stage in some way as a way to prove her devotion to the future. Now, as they look over the stage, they determine that whatever is happening here involves lighting, and that to see what her intent was, they would have to get the lights up and running again. They do not have this ability, but they know someone in lighting, so they decide they're going to head back to the camp of the theater performers and maybe get them involved so they can, discover what all of these little clues are leading to. The group decides to come together now, and they take another long rest, and they wake up the next day and decide to go all together to visit the troupe. And when they get there, Tolo decides to take charge of that conversation. And rather than asking for the lighting director to maybe come with them and set up some lights so they could see what's happened to the stage, no. Tolo offers to put the entire play back on. But what about the actors? That's brought up. Where are all the actors? They're all gone. They don't have anybody to actually play the roles. So Tolo decides to speak for everyone else in the group and offer their services. That's right. We're going to see a play in a game by actors. This is going to be really interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. And that's where the episode ends. Okay, what did I like about this episode? What did I not like about this episode? And what interests do I have as a result of watching this episode? First, let's talk about the good. Then, speaking the last words to his father. That was David. Actually, I reached out to David and talked to him. He was about the language. He was speaking Vietnamese in a southern dialect. And when he gave those last words to his father, and I really, really enjoyed that moment. You know, it was David definitely putting something of himself into that character. I thought it was wonderful to see. And the idea often is that, we don't have real world languages inside of Dungeons and Dragons, but common is suspiciously always English. Okay. And it was just really nice to see David put that bit of himself into his character. I mean, we see that all the time, right? We talked a bit ago about how Tolo is a homage to Kari Payton's own son, and I thought that was beautiful, and I think that what David is doing here is also beautiful. It's wonderful. I love to see it. Obviously, I was happy at the Forgotten Realms deep dive lore, but most importantly, I'm happy that we got the confirmation on the Moonblade. Moonblades are neat, these elven artifacts, swords that can only be used by elves. Presumably, that have these insane magical powers, and whenever the bearer of a Moonblade wields it, like the person who is chosen to be the wielder, certain abilities are unlocked only for them. We actually see this kind of play out in the older Forgotten Realms book series. I want to say Elf Shadow. I think it's the Song and Shadow series, but Elaine Cunningham, I believe, is the writer on those. And I read that series. I loved the Moonblade. I also love Daniel Lothan because it's the first time I ever remember seeing a bard in a book. I am not talking about Encounter Party anymore. Apparently, I'm now on my own thing. Okay, my apologies. Let me come back. Yay, Moonblade. The Sword of Sacrifice. What a cool cursed weapon. The best cursed weapons, in my opinion, are cursed weapons that make you want to use it, right? It's like, well, it's cursed, but I don't know, the ability to drain all of the HP out of somebody immediately. Well, that's pretty neat. Now, of course, I, as a dungeon master, would love to hand that out, but then, of course, we'll spend the entire rest of the game hoping that they don't use it on my big bad evil guy. But I mean, why wouldn't you use it on your big bad evil guy? I'm sure Brian has a plan for this, but just what a neat sword, and would absolutely love to drop. What an absolute delight to toss into a game. People mention sometimes that 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons is lets the players survive too much, and there's too many ways for players to pull themselves out of danger, because apparently that's a bad thing. But this sword is a great way to say, you could have this really interesting power. All you have to do is give up your ability to survive. Oh, love it, love it, love it. What was bad about this episode? I didn't think anything was bad about this episode. I don't have any complaints overall. And what am I interested in, though? First of all, a casual werewolf mention, right? We have these three members of the Longstriders who are lycanthropes on a full moon, and when they did the long rest, the full moon was over. But I'm kind of curious, is there going to be any fallout from that? What does this mean? Does this mean something, or is this neat flavor? I don't know, but I'm interested in finding out. Another thing I'm interested in, Asher's sister, the most important question. What's her name? I really want to know her name. I'm very interested in that. I'm also interested to know what happened to her. Where is she? Why? We're finally really getting some information about Asher's sister and seeing kind of the path that she has taken. And I'm very interested to see, is she a part of the future now? Was she just a dupe? Was she maybe a secret double agent trying to infiltrate? I don't know. We're going to find out a lot about Asher's sister, and then we're going to find out a lot about Asher and the way that she responds to it. So I'm really interested in seeing how that all plays out. Another thing I'm interested in, while we're watching the episode, suddenly there was a set change. Well, not a set change, but rather a terrain change. The terrain got sort of revealed to be a large stage. I don't remember them putting that out there, but it's just suddenly just there in the middle of their table. But there's this big set piece of a giant stage, which is super cool. And for anybody who knows anything about terrain of that caliber being put down on a table with a group of people, it is almost assured that it is going to be used in a combat of some sort. So I am really looking forward to seeing how they use that. But I guess it looks like I may have to wait until next episode to find that one out. All right, and that's it. Those are my thoughts on episode 12 of Encounter Party. The next episode of Encounter Party, episode 13, will be airing on January 30th, which is Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Freevee and Plex on the Dungeons & Dragons Adventures Network. I hope you enjoyed the episode, or if you or at least enjoyed this video. If you wouldn't mind, hit that like and subscribe button, because I always really appreciate it. Also, check out their Discord. I saw a couple of you actually did join the Discord, mentioning that you had seen my stuff, which is awesome, and I super appreciate that. Wow, like what an honor. But really, if you haven't joined their Discord yet, do it. One of the best things that they do, that the actors involved in the show do, is when an episode airs, they join the Discord to have a live conversation about it. So if you have questions that you want answered and such, they will answer them right there in the chat, or at least as best as they can. Obviously they're not going to, answer, hey, what's going to happen next? And, tune in next week to find out. Oh, that would have been a great way to end this video. Tune in next week to find out. I said it again, but I'm not done yet. Okay, either way. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And if you want to know more about what's going to happen in Encounter Party, well, then tune in next week to find out. It was so much better when I said it the first time. Goodbye.